It is Thursday, February 27th, and if you were left without a date on Valentine's Day, don't you worry. There are some lovely matchups in college basketball this weekend. You are watching Right on Cue College Sports. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us again. This is Right on Cue College Sports. I am your host, Tyson Quiller, and we're going to go ahead and dive in just like we normally do on our Thursday shows with a quick recap of some of the college basketball action from earlier in the week, and then we're going to go ahead and preview the slate of games that we're keeping our eye on coming up this weekend. First, I want to say, like, subscribe, rate. Our audience is starting to grow little by little. I'm really appreciative of all of your support. We're working on possibly getting a audio-only version to be able to put on Spotify or iTunes. As for right now, though, we just have this YouTube format. Also, we've established an email so that we can go ahead and receive some of your feedback. RightOnQCS@gmail.com. RightOnQCS@gmail.com. Feel free to send me your feedback, tips, suggestions. If you're upset with me, feel free to just let it rip. I'll probably just skip over it, but maybe it'll make you feel better. So let's go ahead and let's start right here. We haven't talked about the Colorado Buffaloes in a couple of weeks, and they got an outstandingly dominant win over Oregon State earlier this week. The Buffaloes looked absolutely fantastic, winning the game 90-64. They were especially fantastic in the second half. This was a 5-point game with about 12 minutes left in the game. And watching it in real time, you're feeling like it's a close game, and then all of a sudden, Colorado finished the game on a 25-5 run. Jabari Walker went for 24 points, 15 rebounds on 50% shooting. And what was most impressive, in my opinion, he was aggressive. He got to the line. He shot 10 for 10, 100% from the free throw line. Sensational performance out of Jabari Walker. If he can put forward that kind of an effort, I think you'll be able to see the Buffs extend this win streak they've got right now and keep their slim tournament hopes alive. And for the Buffs, they're getting improvement from many of their role players that they really need to. A lot of role players have had to step up because they've had some injuries this year, specifically Nick Clifford and Luke O'Brien, shooting 72% from three, and they combined for 10 rebounds. That's awesome production out of a couple of role players. Nick Clifford's really coming on as a legitimate scoring threat for the Buffaloes. The Buffs have now won 3 in a row. They play at Cal on Thursday, then they play at Stanford on Saturday. Neither of those are easy wins. Okay, those are going to be tough games, but the Buffs need to win them. Then they host Arizona State next Tuesday at the CU Event Center. If they can win all 3 of those, they'll be 19-9 and back, I think, on the bubble of the NCAA tournament, just in time for them to host the number 2 team in the country, Arizona Wildcats, Saturday, February 26th, which is next Saturday. Huge opportunity for the Buffaloes, because for the Buffs right now, the real problem is that they're just 1-6 against quad 1 opponents. So that is really where they're getting hammered. They're not getting a ton of respect when it comes to kind of the national view of who should go to the NCAA tournament. Arizona is obviously absolutely a quad 1 opponent. They'll have Stanford, who is a quad 1 opponent, as well as a game at the end of the season with Oregon, who's a quad 1 opponent. So they have a number of opportunities here to increase that record versus quad 1 opponents. As for right now, the Buffs, 13 of their wins are against quad 3 or quad 4 opponents. Their strength of schedule is just 73rd in the country. Okay, so those are not wowing indicators, but they are still alive to a very slim extent. Okay, now will the Buffs make the NCAA tournament? We don't know that. However, I am starting to see some real shade, some real disrespect being thrown at the Pac12 coming to the surface as we come down the stretch here. Remember last season, 5 teams out of the Pac12 made the NCAA tournament. It was only going to be 4. Oregon State was not going to the NCAA tournament. They had to win the Pac-12 tournament just to get in. Okay, of those 5 teams, every one of them won at least one game in the NCAA tournament. 4 of the 5 made it to the Sweet 16. 3 of the 5 teams from the Pac-12 made the Elite 8. 3 teams out of the Pac-12 made the Elite 8 last year. Here's a little reference for you. The Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10 each had 1 team make the Elite 8. Pac-12 had 3. Okay? The ACC and the Big East had 0 teams make the Elite Eight. Why are every one of these conferences getting way more respect when it comes to the bubble? We're talking about, Indiana's, we're talking about the Floridas, we're talking about Michigans of the world, okay, West Virginia, Oklahoma. Okay, we're not talking about the top tier teams. We're talking about real bubble, legit bubble teams. Why are they getting the nod over some of these Pac-12 teams? There should have been a realignment in how the national media viewed the Pac-12 as a result of how surprisingly impressive they were last year in the NCAA tournament. Before I move on, obviously UCLA made the Final Four. They were the last team standing for the Pac-12. This season, every major bracketology that I've seen has 4, and in some cases only 3 Pac-12 teams make the NCAA tournament. Those being Arizona, UCLA, USC, and then Oregon's considered kind of a bubble team. 8 of the 12 teams in the Pac-12 have 10 or fewer losses this year. Okay, the 4 teams that I haven't mentioned that have 10 or fewer losses: Colorado is 16-9 right now, Stanford 15-10, Washington State 14-10, Washington is 13-10. Okay, none of these teams are being considered anywhere near the bubble when it comes to these national bracketology. Okay, so with that being said, let me go ahead and give you some teams here that are being considered bubble teams, or even in many cases in the tournament. West Virginia, 14-11 on the year, 11 losses. Okay, they're last place in the Big 12, and they've lost 9 of their last 10 games. But hey, let's give them the nod. Okay, Bob Huggins, right? Then Florida, 16-10 out of the SEC. They lost to Texas Southern earlier this year. Okay, this Florida squad is not a good team. Oklahoma, check this out, 14-12. They're barely over 500, and they lost 9 of their last 11 games. And most of these bracketologies have Oklahoma right there on the doorstep, or in many cases. And then Michigan, like I said, 13-10. I mean, except for the recent win, we had 1 win this past week over a ranked opponent. I don't think they've beaten anybody of note before that. So that justifies them getting into the tournament? 1 game? I mean, come on. Anyways, okay, I got my venting about the Pac-12 and the national media out of the way. Let's dive into some of these fun games that really gripped my attention this week. First, 2 nights ago, a team you all know I've been very, very high on, Kentucky, number 4 in the country, rolled into Tennessee and just flat out got dominated. They ended up losing the game 76-63, but this was never close. Double-digit lead for Tennessee the whole way. When Tennessee played at Kentucky last month, Kentucky scored 107 points on them. Kentucky only put up 63 in this game. I mean, incredible adjustment on defense by the players, obviously by head coach Rick Barnes. The Vols put forth a masterful defensive effort. Tennessee pulled out to a 12-point lead at, kind of 8 minutes into the game, and then they controlled it the rest of the way. Zakai Ziegler, that's a guy you're going to want to keep your eye on. Zakai Ziegler, this upstart guard from Tennessee, he is outstanding. He orchestrates the offense incredibly efficiently, and he's a real spark plug. He can get scoring for you. Him and Kennedy Chandler orchestrated masterfully from the backcourt. They had a combined 10 assists. Fulkerson was strong under the hoop, and Vescovy, the other guard, had a great shooting performance. It all just kind of came together for the Vols in this game, who have now beaten 2 soon-to-be probably number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. They beat Arizona earlier this year, and now they've beaten Kentucky. Oscar Tshiebwe does what Oscar Tshiebwe does. He had another double-double. Only 13 points, though, this time, so a little unimpressive on the scoring production, but he had 15 big rebounds. But the other 4 starters were just complete non-factors for Kentucky. The backcourt was loose with the ball. The Wildcats had 18 turnovers in the game, but this one was over early. Very impressive performance by Tennessee. Kentucky hosts Alabama on Saturday. That's going to be a fun matchup. And Tennessee travels to Arkansas. That one is should be the game of the week, maybe. I mean, Tennessee is super hot. Arkansas is super hot. They're both ranked in the top 25, and it's at Arkansas. So probably the team that's a little bit less impressive is hosting the game. Straight up toss-up in that one, okay? Then, number 10, Villanova had an incredibly impressive performance when they traveled to Providence on Tuesday night as well. Villanova finally put it all together, and they looked like an elite team, and they were playing against a damn good Providence bunch. This game was on the edge of close throughout, but looking back, I mean, Nova was up 5 points pretty much the whole way. Anytime it looked like Providence was making a run, Nova would hit a three, Nova would get a turnover. I mean, it was a very mature, impressive performance. They shut the door on Providence. We finally had a good Colin Gillespie sighting. Okay, this is a guy who likes to collect a lot of points and stats in garbage time when the game's already decided. We finally had a game where Colin Gillespie actually drove the Villanova Wildcats team to victory. He was reminding us why he's considered kind of a candidate for potential player of the year. 33 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and in my opinion, most impressively, just 1 turnover. He pushed the issue. He was physical, like I talked about with Jabari Walker. He got to the line. He was 8 for 8 from the free throw line. The Wildcats' junior guard, Justin Moore, had a big double-double as well, 16 points, 10 rebounds. And big man Eric Dixon had 8 points and 9 rebounds as well. They had really all systems going in this game as Nova shot 51% from the field. And like I said, just sort of stymieing every attempt at a comeback that Providence made with a big bucket or with a turnover. Villanova has lost 6 games this year, but when they play like this, I mean, they look like they're probably one of the better teams in the country. As for the Friars, A.J. Reeves and Al Durham both played in foul trouble pretty much the whole way. Reeves only played 20 minutes because of his foul issues. Nate Watson was spectacular as always, 20 points, 6 rebounds, as the Friars actually out-rebounded Villanova, but it just wasn't enough. These were very, very comparable teams. Okay, they're both very good teams, and the Friars just didn't have enough, right? They just barely lost the game. Final score in this one was 89-84 Villanova. Villanova gets a warm-up game against Georgetown, who is terrible this year, and then they're at UConn, while Providence is at Butler on Sunday. So these two teams are going to continue to have kind of tough competition the rest of the way. Then, in the disappointment of the week, number 22 Wyoming, they finally ascend into the top 25, and they travel to my alma mater, the University of New Mexico Lobos, in the pit, and they lose 75-66. Wyoming was up 3 points at halftime, and they seemed to be defending well. But they got out-rebounded by 6 in the second half, and they just couldn't stop the Lobos. New Mexico guard Jalen House was just flat out on fire. He shot 55% from the field and hit 3 threes in the second half alone. House finished with 34 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. Jamal Mashburn Jr. and Jay Allen Tover were great in the paint. They combined for 33 points and 10 rebounds. Richard Pitino's crew has now won 3 in a row. They're looking a little bit revitalized, and they get Colorado State at home tonight. As for the Cowboys, just like Colorado State, finally, like I said, they ascend into the rankings, and then they lose immediately. It's a little bit frustrating. Graham Ike had 26 points and 7 rebounds, but my dude, Hunter Maldonado, he just disappeared. He had a terrible game, just 9 points on 17% shooting. 17% shooting. Oh yeah, he also had 8 turnovers. The Cowboys gave up 45 points in the second half. Too many turnovers, and you know, the offense was off in the second half. Hunter Maldonado being a non-factor, and just a poor defensive performance in the second half. That's how you lose games on the road in this conference. This conference is tough. There's good teams in the Mountain West. So, you know, Wyoming is going to need to regroup because they get a tough Air Force squad who they only beat by 2 points earlier this year, coming up this weekend. Then, in the game of the week, probably last night, number 7 Baylor traveled to number 11 Texas Tech. I talked about a couple episodes ago about how the Big 12 was completely up for grabs. Who's the best team in the Big 12? Is it Kansas? Is it Texas? Texas Tech? Baylor? Who is the best team? They all seem to just be beating themselves in this round robin. Well, I got to tell you, Baylor really misses Everyday John. Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua, their big man. They were able to kind of hang tough early against the Red Raiders in the first half, but their lack of depth in the front court was apparent in the second half. Flo Thamba, Kendall Brown, and Jeremy Sochan. Kendall Brown and Jeremy Sochan are both freshmen. Okay, and the three of them kind of took turns trying to fill the role that was vacated by Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua being injured, out for the season, by the way. But the cupboard was bare. LJ Cryer was back, but he was on a minutes restriction, and Adam Flagler was back as well. So you thought you were going to get reinforcements in the backcourt while you're a little bit depleted in the front court. But James Akinjo continued to play just puzzling style. It became very evident in the second half that he was pressing. He shot just 2 for 6 from the three-point range, had another 5 turnover game. Baylor actually made some big shots late, and they pulled the game to within 5 points. But my guy, James Akinjo, Baylor gets the ball on a steal. They're down only 5. There's about 55 seconds left in the game. Akinjo pushes the court. He's out of control. He jumps up off of his feet, tries to pass it back. He throws it right to Malik Wilson. Unfortunately for him, Malik Wilson's on scholarship at Texas Tech. He takes the ball down, dunks it, and Texas Tech never looked back after that. The Red Raiders pulled away from that point forward. Kevin O'Banner was spectacular, 23 points, 13 rebounds. We're starting to get a lot of double-doubles, actually, out of people coming down the stretch here. And I got to say about Kevin O'Banner, when he gets the three falling, I mean, he's just kind of impossible to guard. He made 4 3-pointers in this game. Bryson Williams also had 17 points on the game, but the guy I've been most impressed with recently is their big man Adonis Arms. He's really a revelation for the squad. He's now scored in double digits for 5 games in a row and collected 5 or more rebounds, so he is really coming on strong at the end of the year. I think that's going to be important production for the squad when it comes the tournament time. Texas Tech looks elite. And especially when they were closing out Baylor, they looked elite. They played mature, smart, team-oriented basketball. I think for Baylor, their style of play is going to have to probably change a little bit. They can't get out and run and gun with everybody. They don't have the depth in the front court. They're going to probably have to tighten up the rotation a little bit, slow the game down a little bit, work more half-court sets, which means it's probably going to be lower-scoring games. They face TCU on Saturday, so we'll see how they adjust for that. TCU's a good squad, projected by most people to make the NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, Texas Tech has the huge matchup at Texas on ABC on Saturday. Big game in the Big 12 on Saturday, Texas Tech at Texas. So now let's dive into our preview of games coming up on this weekend's slate of action. First at 10 a.m. Saturday morning on ESPN, number 12 Illinois, 18-6 on the year, travels to East Lansing to play number 19 Michigan State. They are also 18-6 on the year. Now these two teams played back on January 25th, and Illinois won 56-55. Really low scoring, grinded out, grudge match, defensive battle back when they played on January 25th. Now for Illinois, neither Andre Curbelo or Kofi Cockburn played in that game. Kind of big factors. Kofi Cockburn might be the Big Ten Player of the Year, might be the National Player of the Year. Okay, both squads have great guard play. What will decide this game, I think, is the front court action. In that last game, Sparty out-rebounded Illinois 41-27. That won't happen here. Big Kofi Cockburn's back. He goes 7 foot tall, 285. He's going to be down there battling with Marcus Bingham, who is also 7 foot tall, but only 230. So that's a 55-pound advantage Kofi Cockburn has on him. Bingham had 6 rebounds in their last matchup, but that was not against Kofi Cockburn. And Gabe Brown and Malik Hall both go 6'8". They had a combined 9 rebounds. They're going to struggle to get those rebounds with big Kofi Cockburn in there. Michigan State is coming off of a flat-out embarrassing loss to Penn State. They only scored 58 points in the game. They're having real offensive issues. But it's worth note, if they win here, Tom Izzo will pull even with Bob Knight for most Big Ten wins for a coach in a career. So, will they get the win? Survey says no. Illinois by 8, that's my verdict. Michigan State's going to have to get that win for Tom Izzo somewhere else. Then at 10:30 on ABC, that big game I was just talking to you about, number 11 Texas Tech travels to number 20 Texas. Both of these teams are really ascending quickly down the stretch here. Both of these teams are in the top 15 in the net rankings. Texas remains the second best scoring defense in the country, while the Red Raiders have slipped a touch down to 17th. They gave up 69 and 73 in their last 2 games. but both were good opponents. Obviously, Baylor was the most recent opponent, so I don't think that's some huge noteworthy fact. The Red Raiders are coming off of 2 big home wins. Their offense has been very, very efficient. They have had a different leading scorer in each of the last 7 games. That makes it really hard to defend them. Okay, Kevin O'Banner has been outstanding in that stretch, like I mentioned, averaging a double-double per game. Now, Texas pulled out a tight victory over Oklahoma in overtime on Tuesday. In that game, and the big win last week over Kansas, Timmy Allen and Andrew Jones are combining for 40 points per game. And Marcus Carr has really improved his production, adding 15 points as well. The offense is starting to click for this squad as well. Both Texas Tech and Texas have elite defenses, and their offenses are starting to come on. These two teams are both very hot right now. Texas is a slight favorite at home, Vegas odds, but I'm going to take Texas Tech by 3 in a upset on the road. Then at 11 o'clock on CBS, another game I mentioned earlier, number 25 Alabama travels to number 4 Kentucky. Alabama collected a huge win last Saturday over a white-hot Arkansas Razorback squad. It flew a little bit under the radar, but that was a big, big win for Nate Oates' bunch. They then held off Mississippi State last night, and it was really just kind of a pretty flat performance out of the Crimson Tide. Jaden Shackelford has been on a bit of a shooting slump, but he is providing production elsewhere, rebounds on defense. He's still involved in the game, which makes me think his shooting slump's going to turn around here shortly. He hasn't given up or gotten frustrated. He's continuing to fight in other ways. Alabama, keep in mind, shoots 29 three-pointers per game. 29. That leads the nation, okay? Jaden Shackelford is 37% from the 3, so if he gets going, Alabama can compete with anybody. But Jahan Quinterly, who also shoots a lot of threes, he's only shooting 24% on the season. So a little bit of potentially a defensive strategy is to have Quinterly shooting these threes instead of Shackelford, even though Shackelford's been on this bit of a shooting slump lately. I think if Shackelford and Quinterly can get hot from 3, like I said, the Tide will have a chance. They have a chance against anybody if they're shooting hot from 3. But Kentucky is heading home, and they are just bitter. Okay, they just got owned, like I told you earlier, by Tennessee, and I have to imagine they're just fuming, ready to get back out on the court. Grady and Brooks will shoot better than the paltry 20% that they were able to muster against Tennessee, and ball control is going to be a priority. If Alabama comes out flat, I think this one could get out of hand quick. I've got Kentucky big by 15 at home in this one. A big bounce-back effort. Then Tennessee, number 16, travels to Arkansas. This is later in the day on Saturday. Tennessee, like I said, looked phenomenal against Kentucky earlier this week. That was a totally different element that I did not think they were capable of. Tennessee averages almost 17 assists per game. They're a very deliberate, team-oriented squad. They don't have this superstar player that goes out and scores 28, 30 points a game. But they also average almost 10 steals a game on defense. The backcourt is very talented and scrappy. Arkansas is now up to a 6 seed in the latest bracketology. Tennessee is a 4 seed. The guy, remember I told you to keep your eye on, Zakai Ziegler, he is the spark for this Vols squad. If he gets going, the Vols will get the win on the road. But Arkansas has won 11 of their last 12 games, their only loss being against Alabama. J.D. Notae is a legitimate candidate for SEC Player of the Year. You all know my opinion is that it should go to Oscar Tshiebwe, but he's right there, right on the edge. And now Stanley Umude is doing his best Moses Moody impression, averaging 21 points, 7 rebounds in each of their last 2 games. I think Arkansas is hot. Tennessee's going to have a little bit of a letdown after that big emotional win earlier this week over Kentucky. I've got Arkansas in the upset by 4. Then the Wyoming Cowboys. The Wyoming Cowboys host Air Force. Air Force 10 and 13 on the year. Wyoming, again, is coming off of their first loss in 7 games as they fell to the Lobos down in the pit in Albuquerque. Wyoming won by just 2, like I mentioned, over Air Force. Last month, 63-61. The Cowboys made just 2 of 16 three-pointers in that game, and they had just 5 assists. Okay, a really disconjointed, disoriented game, but they found a way to get the win against Air Force. Graham Ike had 6 turnovers and scored just 10 points in that game. Complete aberration. But it's something to be aware of. This Air Force defense was able to really disrupt the Cowboys' offense. So don't be surprised if Air Force hangs around in this one. But Wyoming, they're going to feed the post early and establish dominance in the paint. The Cowboys get to the line a lot. Graham Ike and Maldonado average 7 free throw attempts each game. That needs to be a priority as well. On the defensive end, Wyoming is number 11 in the country at 3-point field goal percentage defense. So if they can get out to an 8 to 10 point lead, you're not going to see Air Force come rolling back hitting 3-pointers. Wyoming is excellent on defending the 3. This Falcon squad runs a 4-guard set. A.J. Walker is the key for Air Force. I think Maldonado and Jeffries are going to be able to lock him up. They're going to be efficient and effective on offense. Wyoming gets the dub by 8 here. Then at 8 p.m. on CBS Sports Network, San Diego Aztecs, clinging to the last hopes of the NCAA tournament, travel to Fresno State. The Aztecs are a slight favorite here. And again, like I said, they're fighting for their tournament lives. Both teams have a top 4 scoring defense in the country, so look for this to be a very low-scoring game. Fresno State is third at 57 points per game given up. San Diego State's just behind them, 57.8. So, this is going to be a low-scoring game. Orlando Robinson, the big man for Fresno State, I think he should be able to kind of get what he wants down low. San Diego State doesn't really have a big man that can compete with him, but Matt Bradley and the guard play for San Diego State is just phenomenal. I think the Aztecs will prove to be too much. San Diego State gets the win by 5 on the road. So let's do a quick recap here of the picks that I gave you for this weekend action. I've got number 12, Illinois, winning over number 19, Michigan State on the road. I've got number 11, Texas Tech, winning on the road over number 20, Texas. Texas Tech is an underdog in that pick, so a chance to maybe win some money there. I've got Kentucky at home over Alabama. I've got Arkansas at home over Tennessee. They're also an underdog, so some money to win there. I got Wyoming at home over Air Force, and then San Diego State travels on the road to Fresno State and gets the dub. So thanks again for checking in with us. I hope you were able to mark your calendar, get that weekend slate of games scheduled so you know where to be with your popcorn and a couple of cold ones cracked and ready. Once again, like, subscribe, rate. I'll give you my email one more time, right on Q, the letter Q, cs@gmail.com. Please feel free to send me your feedback. We're just growing and building this program, and it's really kind of an exciting time here. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will get at you next time.